Hey everyone! Today we're going to explore the story of the Gepids, an ancient group of people who lived long ago in what we now call Romania, Hungary and Serbia. They made their home in the areas between the Tisa River, the Sava River, and the Carpathian Mountains. What's fascinating about the Gepids is their connection to other famous tribes like the Goths and Vandals, and the incredible history they created. The Gepids first showed up in Roman records during the 3rd century. By the 4th century they had become part of the Hunnic Empire, which was a massive and powerful empire led by Attila the Hun. But after Attila's death, everything changed. The Gepids, led by their brave leader Ardaric, decided to fight back. They joined with other groups that had been under the Huns' rule, and defeated Attila's sons and allies in the famous Battle of Nedao in 454. This victory was a huge moment for the Gepids, because it allowed them to create their own kingdom. Their kingdom was located near the Middle Danube, close to the borders of the Roman Empire. This kingdom, sometimes called Gepidia, had its center in a city called Sirmium, and covered much of what had once been the Roman province of Dacia. The Gepid Kingdom was unique, because they managed to stay pretty independent from Rome, which wasn't easy during those times. However, their good fortune didn't last forever. In 567, about 100 years later, the Gepids faced a big problem. They were defeated by a powerful alliance of the Lombards and the Avars. Since they didn't get any help from the Eastern Roman Empire in Constantinople, they couldn't hold their ground. Some Gepids joined the Lombards when they moved to Italy, while others went to live in Roman territories. Even after losing their kingdom, some Gepids stayed in the region, though their influence slowly disappeared over time. Here's an interesting detail. Not many archaeological sites have been linked to the Gepids with certainty. Most of their settlements were near the Somes and Same Koros rivers, but they didn't mix much with other groups nearby. It's as if they preferred to stick to themselves. The name Gepid has been a topic of debate for centuries. Roman writers spelled it differently, sometimes as Gepidae or Gepidae, while Greek writers like Procopius used forms like Gepid. In Old English stories like Beowulf and Widsith, they were called Gephitas or Geptas, which scholars think are just different versions of the name Gepidae. Some experts believed the P in their name was actually a Gothic way of mocking the Gepids, calling them slow. This idea comes from a Gothic historian named Jordanes, who said the name came from the word Gepanta, meaning slow in Gothic. According to his story, the Gepids got this nickname because during a great migration, they lagged behind their Gothic relatives. Another historian, Isidore of Seville, thought the name had something to do with the Latin word for feet, saying the Gepids were known for fighting on foot instead of on horseback. There's even another idea from a Byzantine text called the Etymologicum Magnum. It claimed the Gepids' name meant children of the Goths. All these different theories show how people have tried to understand and explain the Gepids' name over the years. When it comes to their language, we don't have a lot of evidence, but it's likely that the Gepids spoke a dialect similar to the Goths' language. They shared many cultural traits with the Goths, and Procopius, a historian from the 6th century, described the Gepids as one of the Gothic peoples, along with the Vandals and Visigoths. He said they had fair skin, blonde hair, and practiced Arian Christianity, which was common among many Germanic tribes back then. A lot of what we know about the Gepids' origins comes from Gothic legends, which aren't exactly the most reliable sources. According to Jordanes, the Gepids' ancestors came from a northern island called Skansa, which modern scholars think might be Sweden. They left the island with the Goths, led by a king named Berig. The Gepids, however, were on the slowest ship, which is supposedly why they were teased and called slow. After that, they settled near the Vistula River before moving further south. At one point, a Gepid king named Fastida decided they needed more land. He challenged the Visigoths, demanding territory, and even went to battle with them. And before the Huns arrived, the Gepids were a mysterious and lesser-known Germanic tribe. Historian Malcolm Todd even called them the most shadowy of all the major tribes during the migration period. Ancient writers like Tacitus and Ptolemy didn't mention them, and they only appeared in historical records in the late 200s AD. Already living in the area they would occupy for much of their history. Some historians believe the Gepids were part of the Scythian groups that Emperor Claudius Gothicus defeated during his campaigns. This idea comes from a questionable source, the Augustan history, which lists various tribes, including the Gepids. Later, Emperor Probus reportedly settled some captured Gepids and other tribes like the Vandals and Grutungi within the Roman Empire during the late 200s AD. In 291 AD, a speech given in Trier describes a battle where the Gepids fought alongside the Vandals against groups like the Taifali and some Goths. Historians think this battle was part of the Gepid king Fastida's attempts to expand his territory. Though the exact location is debated, many believe it happened in or near the former Roman province of Dacia. For much of the 300s, the Gepids seem to have stayed out of the spotlight. They weren't mentioned in Roman records, likely because their lands didn't border the Roman Empire. Archaeologists believe they lived near the Carpathian Mountains, possibly along the Tisa or Dniester rivers. Evidence from graves, such as weapons and ornaments, shows that the Gepids were present in parts of modern Hungary and Romania during this time. They likely expanded their territory by defeating other Germanic tribes, like the Victuhali. The arrival of the Huns in the early 400s shook things up. Many tribes, including the Gepids, were forced to adapt or flee. According to a historian named Jordanus, Thorismund, an Ostrogothic king, defeated the Gepids but died in the process. This marked the beginning of the Gepids falling under Hunnic rule. Archaeological finds, like a hidden treasure at Gimliu Silvaniae, suggest this was a time of turmoil. Under the Huns, the Gepids became an important part of their empire. Attila the Hun valued their king, Ardaric, as one of his closest allies. The Gepids fought in several of Attila's campaigns, including the famous Battle of the Catalaunian Plains in 451, where they played a major role. These campaigns brought them wealth, as seen in the rich grave goods of their aristocracy. When Attila died suddenly in 453, his empire fell apart. King Ardaric, angered by the way the Huns treated their subject peoples, led a rebellion. At the Battle of Nedao in 454, the Gepids and their allies defeated the Huns, ending their dominance. After this victory, the Gepids became the leading power in the eastern Carpathian Basin. They allied with the Roman Empire and received an annual payment of gold, which strengthened their position. For a while, the Gepid Kingdom thrived. Their capital was Sirmium, now Sremska Mitrovica, and they became very wealthy, as treasures from places like Apahida and Sumtseni show. However, they often clashed with other tribes. In 469, they joined a coalition against the Ostrogoths, but suffered a major defeat at the Battle of Bolia. Even so, they regained Sirmium after the Ostrogoths moved to Italy in 473. The 500s marked the peak of Gepid power. They controlled large territories and maintained Sirmium as a key city. But tensions with the Byzantine Empire grew, especially under Emperor Justinian I. In 552, the Byzantines teamed up with the Lombards to defeat the Gepids. This crushing loss signaled the decline of the Gepid Kingdom, as their territory and influence were gradually taken over by their rivals.